30th November 2023 to 12th December 2023. So today, as per schedule, today is the last day of COP28, and maybe within 2 hours, by 11 o'clock, it should be closing on schedule, if it is so. But as usual, most COPs, especially in the last 3-4 COPs, they extended by 24 hours, some by 48 hours. So we have to see whether it is going to extend. What yesterday's events, I think they show that this COP can extend until evening at least, or tomorrow also. So yesterday, as we discussed on 11th December, it was a complete negotiations space. So there was no space for any thematic events or side events. Of course, there were other events in Green Zone, but they were not organized by COP28 presidency or any official body. I will just share. To begin with, during this COP, we have seen cyclone Michuang which has impacted Chennai, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and some parts of Telangana with unusual rains, which is again has been attributed to climate change. But now, just yesterday we have seen this report about the very high contrast in temperature in China. So you can see the southernmost tip has 35.3 degrees centigrade, and then the northernmost tip has a minus 47.8 degrees. So the difference is 83.1 degrees centigrade. So across the world, I think we are going to see this vast difference in the temperatures and vast differences in national circumstances and possibly impacts on the people. But then, in the last 28 COPs, they have been discussing these differential impacts, but common impacts as well. And the common impact is where the temperature of Earth is rising, and that is causing climate change and leading to climate disasters. So this has been agreed, and IPCC reports have been mentioning on these problems. Now let us go to what substantial negotiations happened yesterday. Can you be silent? This who's Nagesh, silent పెట్టు ఎవరిది ఇక్కడే ఉన్నావా చెక్ చేయ మధ్యలో డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది. So yesterday whole day there were negotiations, but they were inside the negotiating rooms, and except it's in one event, all others have been under wraps, and only in the evening text has been released. And basically, as we discussed on yesterday on about 10th December event, there is a global COP28 presidency. They organized a majlis, where they brought together everyone, and they indicated that there is a lot of transparency in the negotiations which are happening. But yesterday it was completely under the wraps. So not many knew what is happening inside the negotiating rooms, except when the ministers are coming and going, or some observers have been allowed in some negotiating rooms. But until evening, I think the draft text on global stock take, which became now the very important text, that was released only in the evening around 4:30. So until then, people were guessing what is happening, and the euphoria which was created at the Majlis on 10th December, I think it seems to have petered over by this text which was released in the evening on 11th December. That text is a huge disappointment, because everyone thought fossil fuel phase out will be there, and there is going to be some consensual text coming out of it. But it's like a pendulum swing from that, and when the text came out, the fourth draft text, which was released yesterday, it shows that there is no phase out at all. So completely it was removed. The energy package and paragraph 38 and earlier 35, it was completely removed. So phase out is completely gone. And this text is actually titled as draft text by the presidency. So now this text is in the hands of COP28 president, who heads National Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and who is also president of COP28, and is also a minister in the Abu Dhabi UAE government. So this text is now in the hands of the presidency, and how this text will be taken forward is now incumbent on the basically the COP28 president. So this text, is almost 21 pages long, and there are 11,000 words. So someone mentioned that only 3 times fossil fuel was mentioned. So earlier, if you remember the options, option one, option two, under A, B, C, D, E, F, all of them have been completely removed. And there is no mention of oil and gas at all. So oil and gas and coal, they were targeted earlier, but now the words of oil and gas are completely gone. Fossil fuel, only 3 times it is mentioned. And then the entire energy package is now is more about very loose language of actions. And critically, when if on December 3rd, around that, there was this declaration on methane, elimination of methane. But this text, which is important because the global stocktake is about the progress achieved from Paris Agreement. But then the report itself said that nothing moved, there is no progress, and in fact we are moving. The Earth is moving towards extreme heat conditions, and in that context, this global stocktake negotiation track assumed a lot of importance. People thought, this is going to make the difference in terms of the consensual text emerging out of it. But now it has gone back, it does not even mention methane. Methane is the second largest greenhouse gas. Contrary to the declarations, the euphoria created by the declarations, I think 13 declarations were made during COP28, where 130 countries, 159 countries, 120 countries. So a lot of the countries signed those declarations, and everyone thought these declarations laid the steps for a very strong global stocktake agreement. but it has gone back, and not even the rudimentary mention is there about all this, and where fossil fuel phase out has been emphasized upon repeatedly by every global leader, even until day before yesterday. But then, how did this text come out? I think it will be interesting to know, because I know every major country except one or two, like Saudi Arabia, United States, and of course OPEC countries, every country supported this phase out call. So how did this complete energy package got removed, and what are those lobbies, or who are the people who put pressure on this removal? There were discussions about its inclusion. There were some opposition, but even the opposition from Saudi Arabia was qualified. It was not a complete, disagreement, except Iraq. Iraq said we should not talk about phase out, and maybe a clutch of countries were opposing that. But here we see that they have been removed. That means the overwhelming majority view has not prevailed here. So this calls for the on the it's a comment on the democratic process which is supposed to be happening at COP28. Now on adaptation is again a very major issue for especially countries which have been facing climate change related disasters. So even there, the language is very vague or very loose, and it gives scope for it does not it's not specific basically. I think that's what we are seeing. Now this is a text, which you can see uh, package. Earlier we had a very strong language, but now this paragraph 13 says tripling renewable energies. They're rapidly phasing down. No, it's not phase out, it's phasing down unabated coal, and limitations on permitting new and unabated coal power generation. That means about new investments. So if you again remember, until yesterday, five options were on the table. One is fossil fuel phase out, and second is, tripling renewable energy capacity by 11,000 gigawatt. Third is increasing, energy efficiency from 2 to 4%. Fourth is, complete stop in new investments on fossil fuel development, exploration, or complete supply chain. And fifth is, basically alternatives that have to be built. Fossil fuel subsidies, removal of fossil fuel subsidies, or complete phasing out. So here you can see that got reflected, but the language is changed completely. So here you can see enhance efforts towards substitution of unabated fossil fuels. So the language has changed drastically. That's it's becoming clear. Phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. So again, there is a qualification and fossil fuel subsidies. It's not a general word of fossil fuel subsidies. They are saying inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, whatever that means. So the entire language in this GST draft negotiating text has changed overnight, and now that is causing a lot of you know uh, furor in COP28. So immediately there have been responses. So the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance, which includes some countries, they gave out a call for action, and they are saying We urge parties to join us in calling for global phase out of all fossil fuels to achieve net zero carbon dioxide no later than 2050. So they are saying before 2050, we have to have a pathway and phase out. So some people thought phasing out fossil fuel will be happening in the 1 2 years. Some countries are talking it until 2050. That means a period of window period of at least 27 years. And we can see say it was signed by Colombia, Denmark, Fiji, Finland, France, Greenland, Ireland, Marshall Islands, Portugal, Samoa, Sweden, Spain, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, and Wales. So they are calling all parties to join them in taking action in this direction. So this again, Carbon Brief, which has been giving us a very fantastic update on COP28. They came up with analysis of the GST text. So they note within the text, they bring out the word notes. So notes, it says the parties notes, this noting notes. So notes means it does not mean action. It is just notes. So it was repeated 46 times. Then recognizes 43 times, encourages 32 times. So among all these words, they are seen notes, recognizes, encourages, recalls, emphasizes, welcomes, invites, requests, urges, acknowledges, calls upon, reaffirms, expresses, underlines, and then decides. So decides only 5 times, decides comes, underscores comes 4 times, comments 4 times, reiterates 3, stresses 3. So the entire text, the specific agreement and a specific goal is now camouflaged by this kind of language, which is very vague, very loose, and so invites, it says invites 18 times, requests, urges. So, when the critics at the beginning, they said COP28 is going to fail in delivering. I think they appear to be right because ultimately COP28 is turning out to be what the critics have been saying. So these small island states, they immediately also put out as a statement. They said this we cannot be agreed. They will not agree this weak language on fossil fuels. So they are going to push for a stronger word. So they say it presents a menu of options that states could take. So could is not acceptable. Acceptable. They want it to be shall or something very strong word. So they're saying states must take action on fossil fuel benefit. Now, in International Energy Agency, they have already gave a assessment where they are saying if there is a gap in between the pledges, these are the pledges, and if they implement, and then the basically the 1.5 degree, keeping Earth's temperature to 1.5 degree path. So there is a lot of gap between the pledges and then the path which was decided as part of Paris Agreement. And then policy shifts coming out of Paris mean this should have been the line of on the fossil fuel phase out. But then it is happening here. So ultimately, what this is stating is whether any decision is taken or not, by 2025, we will be peaking on the fossil fuel usage, is what this analysis is saying. So even under current policies, which do not take any decision about phase out, but still I think there will be a peak, and beyond that we cannot continue fossil fuel usage. So that basically it means that it is better to phase out rather than go into a peak situation and then scramble for taking decisions at that time, because you know fossil fuel phase out involves a lot of impacts, and that is where just transition is been talking about, so that poor do not suffer, the vulnerable do not suffer, and the countries can have a gradual transition from fossil fuel economy to alternative economy. So there have been a lot of reactions to this global statement. So as I mentioned, Alliance of Small Island States, they said we will oppose this because this is we will not sign our death certificate. So if we are going to sign a text which is not, which does not have fossil fuel phase out, this alliance says it will be a death for all of us, and they don't want to sign on this. European Union also, they said we will walk away from climate talks if this deal not changed. So basically, they are also emphasizing that we need a fossil fuel phase out. Germany said it is completely unacceptable. But I know interesting is the USA response. Instead of talking about fossil fuel phase out, John Kerry says the mitigation section, including the issue of fossil fuels, needs to be substantially strengthened, and the finance section contains inaccuracies that must be fixed. So there is no direct language again within the US statement. So it is clear that USA does not want fossil fuel phase out as proposed earlier. Now this alliance, GRA alliance, Global Renewable Alliance, they welcome the inclusion of tripling renewables by 2030. But then they are also concerned about energy transition package. So they want again energy transition package to be included. Then least developed countries chair as part of UNFCCC, he also said that we cannot accept the latest GST tax. We need a way forward to meet 1.5 degrees scaled up climate finance for adaptation and phasing out of fossil fuels with differentiation. So she acknowledges phasing out can be different for different countries, but ultimately it has to be a common decision. So current text does not set a clear pathway. So she says we need to increase our ambition. But where is the ambition? So GST text does not have any ambition, is what our statement is saying. There were other people, journalists who said there is nothing on mitigation. Basically, how to mitigate the carbon emission. There is nothing there. Then someone said, not a very strong mention of food systems transformation. Even though there was a declaration, but the text is very weak on asking about food system transformation in the text. So it says, why did 159 governments sign the food declaration if their negotiations don't follow through? All those 159 countries are part of this negotiation. They signed a declaration, but the text does not talk about any food system transformation. So there is again someone says fossil fuel interests are hijacked COP meetings. So which has been people have been suspect about it, but now on 11 December, they say it has been proven that this meeting has been hijacked by oil fossil fuel interest. Now, even the global goal on adaptation is very weak and does not sufficiently address the aspiration for setting up adaptation measures and indicators and for mobilizing adaptation finance. Sweden also opposed this, a lack of text in fossil fuel phase out. So it is possible to shift the economic structure and architecture we have toward benefiting our countries on a basis other than fossil fuels. So she says we have to move towards that, and there is scope for economic structure and architecture shift. Now, Al Gore, was a vice president of US and has been part of the environmental movement for several years. He came up with a statement. He said COP28 is now on the verge of complete failure. So if the decision today continues with the text yesterday, I think he says it is a complete failure, and today we'll know whether it is a complete failure. So he says this COP is of the petrostates, by the petrostates, and for the petrostates. So he clearly says that this petroleum states have captured this, COP28 is what he's saying. Now, finance has always been flagged as a very important, uh, stream of negotiations, and here we see there is nothing on finance as well. Now, finance is, different types. One is, definition. A lot of these negotiations have been, bogged down by definition of what is climate finance. Because developed countries which have been reluctant about finance, they are pushing only under duress about the funds which they give regularly. So bilateral loans and many other things have been slaughtered under climate finance. In fact, the loss and damage operationalization on December 1st, it raised a lot of expectations. People thought there are going to be money for that because on the first day, some $800 million have been mobilized. But then people quickly pointed out there is actually a loss and damage coalition, and they have been bringing out a lot of statistics. So they say only three footballers, world footballers, earn more than the commitments which were given under loss and damage. So that means that it is a very pittance, very small amount which is being committed. It has not yet been transferred. So they said they'll give, but when, how, what is again, it has not been worked out, and it should have been worked out, but I think it did not. So, developed countries are failing to deliver on finance obligations and now trying to remove those obligations altogether. So, they are trying to remove the obligations also. So, US is taking lead in this, especially in GST text, adaptation text, and just a transition text. So then there is another view. They said that no phase out or no finance can lead to climate chaos. But then even if there is a agreement on phase out, but without finance is also going to be a disastrous. So ultimately, we need a fossil fuel phase out, and with finance and with technology. So these are, I know, two very compulsory, uh, requirements which should have been in COP28 negotiating text. But then there is no text at all on long-term finance. So long-term finance, if you remember, on third day itself, where they agreed to postpone it to COP29. So there is no text at all on long-term finance. So this is again a commentary on the COP28 phase of negotiations. And here again, Carbon Brief tells us rich nations want, to widen the donor base. So the financial base of climate finance. Basically, rich countries wants everyone to contribute, including China, India, and other countries. And they themselves they don't want to contribute. But I know that this graph shows that been contributing. It's not that they have not been contributing. So this data shows that China is also a very significant contributor, and India is also a contributor to climate finance. So it's not that they are not there. In fact, developed countries, rich nations have gone back on their financial commitments, and now they are putting barriers in terms of moving forward on mobilizing climate finance for both adaptation and mitigation. So that means, disasters might continue, emissions might continue, and then we may not reach the 1.5 degree centigrade goal if there is no finance and there is no commitment to give finance from developed countries. So yesterday, people were standing outside to pressurize the global leaders to take a decision on fossil fuels. So they were lining like this, the photo shows they were standing there. So whoever comes in and goes out of the rooms, these people are giving a message to them that we want fossil fuel phase out. Now there is again we discussed this yesterday, U.S. China Sunnyland statement where they both came together, and people are hoping that this statement might be of help in achieving consensus. So there you can see the language is to sufficiently accelerate renewable energy and also accelerate the substitution for coal, oil, and gas. So substitution is almost saying phasing out coal, oil, and gas. So this statement and then the statement between US and China, I think people are hoping a lot on this kind of statement. There was this Mariam Al-Amhari. She is the UAE Minister of Climate Change and Environment. She spoke on the World Food Forum. So she says we need to galvanize political will, we need to link water and food, and we need to generate a collaboration, and fourth is adapt solution. So food is now a major issue, and global phase out, GST does not refer to food as a priority issue, even though everyone agrees that food is a major problem. Now, Regeneration International, I reported this, they boycotted COP28. I'm just bringing it back because now on 12th December, we can understand whether they were true in boycotting. So they said The ministers from 196 countries, their staff, bureaucrats, and executives, they fly into Dubai in private jets and on first class tickets. They'll stay in five-star hotels, eat in the finest restaurants, and be chauffeured in expensive luxury limousines to and from the talk at taxpayers' expense. Hundreds of millions of dollars will be wasted on this extravagant display of corrupt excess. And don't forget their massive greenhouse gas emissions contributing to climate change. So this is a statement put out by Regeneration International about why they have boycotted COP28. So now, when on the penultimate day, we are seeing that what they said is turning out to be true. And the attitude of rich countries. Everyone says we can save our planet, but at the back of their head is basically the rich want to stay rich, and they want the poor to stay poor. I think that's what this cartoon is trying to tell us. So there are some negative reactions. There are reactions to global stock take, on the draft negotiation text, and where everyone who reacted, they called for fossil fuel phase out. But then there are negative reactions to that kind of position. So there are people who said no fossil fuel makes no sense. So they said, how can you talk about fossil fuel phase out? Because there is no currently commercially available and readily deployable mass scale alternatives to fossil fuels for making fertilizer, plastic, steel, and cement. I think this is not true. There are alternatives to fertilizer, there are alternatives to plastic, and steel and cement, of course, you need to change the material. But this statement is completely wrong about the availability of alternatives. So the leaders at COP28 want to phase out fossil fuels by 2050. So someone else is saying that's like phasing out oxygen. Food, healthcare, housing, and sanitation all depend on fossil fuels, and billions will die without a low-cost fuel for fertilizer, heating, plastic, steel, and cement. So again and again, fertilizer is being brought about because fertilizer is used for agriculture production. So what they mean is, if you stop fertilizing soil with this chemical fertilizer, we will not have food and we all will die, which is again not true because without fertilizer, a lot of agriculture is being done. In fact, fertilizer consumption increases the threats to health and longevity of people. So, in that sense, I think this statement is wrong. We need to shift away from all this. And of course, they don't have option, developed countries because they have destroyed skills, they have destroyed knowledge, and they have destroyed systems where alternatives can be built. So maybe they have their problem, but all other countries, so maybe 170 to 180, they have the choice of losing, withdrawing from fertilizer usage, chemical fertilizer usage, which comes from crude petroleum. So I think it is possible. It is not impossible. There is technology. India has a lot of these technologies, especially plastic can be replaced with traditional livelihoods based in villages. Then someone is saying if the world phased out fossil fuels, there would be worldwide death from famine and climate exposure. I think this is not true, but in any case, listeners, please think about this, because some people believe in some wrong ideas, and they keep parroting this kind of statements where they think fossil fuel phase out is not good. So, so here that's what the statement puts it together. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. So the message is, we have to demand, the people have to demand, and only when the people demand, the power, people in power, the powerful, they will concede something. So the demand has to come from the people. So that is where this conference of people being organized by Council for Green Revolution is for people to know and then react and probably raise a demand to review or rewind the impact on agriculture, food, and all other sectors. So coming to negotiation tracks, again, there are 17 new texts which were released yesterday on 11 December. And of those 17, 14 are draft decisions. So they can be governed by COP president as approved, because they are now agreed texts, but three are under a draft negotiation text. So these three are still there for negotiation. And I think negotiations are continuing maybe yesterday and today morning as well. And if the president wants to stick to 11 a.m. Closure, I think these three draft texts will be under severe stress in negotiation rooms, and there are a lot of expectations around that. So, but still, apart from this 17, there are 115 draft negotiating texts which are at a rudimentary level. And 45 draft conclusions are there, only 24 clean texts, and 44 draft decisions. So this again shows that COP28 is not been able to deliver what it is set out on 30th November. All those lofty speeches by President 28 that this is a COP with a difference. They are saying this is a COP with a difference, and they were euphoric. They said on first day we could achieve consensus because no country was allowed to put an agenda item in COP28. And then the declaration, then the loss and damage, operationalization. So all in all, COP28 president has been saying we have achieved very quickly and we have achieved substantially than any other COP before. But then when you look at these negotiating tracks, almost 115 tracks, they are not reached beyond their fundamental level. So that's again a very serious comment on the situation at COP28. So these, these are the number of items. So only 16 are agreed, 26 nearly agreed, 23 not agreed, 5 are no text. So there's no text at all. So all these have to move towards agreed, because the COP will close only when all of this move towards agreement or a resolution or a gavel. The COP president will tap on the table with a wooden gavel. So only then I think COP will close. But we are not sure it is going to happen because at this very late stage, after almost 11 days, 12 days of negotiations, it's very poor track record that so many texts are still under negotiation. So these are all the different tracks which have been approved yesterday by the COP28 president. So it includes a report on credentials. There was a clarity on the rules of procedure. Then the dates and venues have been declared. Azerbaijan has agreed to organize the COP29 in Baku, its capital. Azerbaijan is also a petro state. Their economy is built on oil and gas. So from Abu Dhabi, I think COP is going to move towards another petro state. And then COP30, Brazil has offered, and that has been agreed. So it will not happen in Rio de Janeiro, but some other town within Brazil. Then there have been reports of subsidiary bodies which have been adopted and approved for decision. So all this, the reports have been approved, joint reports. Then there was a gender, a decision on gender as well. Then administrative, financial, institutional matters were also discussed, and some consensus has been worked out in that regard. But still, there is no agreement on decision making in the UNFCCC process. So I think again this has been postponed to COP29. So here is the text which gives a status of which track is at what level. So loss and damage fund is agreed, which we have seen on the first day itself. But the Santiago network for loss and damage, it is nearly agreed, but it's a clean text. So clean text is there is no bracket and just a running text we can see. Then Warsaw implementation mechanism for climate change is also agreed upon. Global stock take not agreed. Global goal on adaptation not agreed. Adaptation committee report postponed to COP26. COP29. So just transition, all these are there. You can see at the bottom, agriculture and food security track was also not agreed. Even though everyone said that this is a very important track and we need to look at it. Even Article 6.4 carbon markets, even that was not agreed upon. Further, there are other capacity building support, Green Climate Fund. There is agreement on all this global environment facility. But there are many things were postponed. At least in a year you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Almost 15 items have been postponed to another COP. Again, this is a very poor state of affairs at COP28. No, there have been different views. Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of UN, he was there in the initial days and he went back. But yesterday he came back. He said, without me, how can a policy decision be taken? So he says after yesterday GST text, we cannot keep kicking the can down the road. So he basically says you cannot postpone. And then he says we are out of the road and almost out of time. So basically he says our time is nearing because the temperature is growing, disasters are happening. Then Simon Steele, UNFCCC Executive Secretary, he says everyone is focused on getting an outcome in the next 24 hours. Everything is on the table for an outcome uh, that is responding to climate crisis. Then Razan Al Mubarak, she is also one of the ministers. She was sympathetic towards indigenous people who need to be encouraged. Is what she is saying. Then there was this statement, by on Twitter. It says science that supports the narrative gets the funding, and the science based on the principles of science is discarded by mainstream institutions. So this is where we can see false solutions being peddled as science and scientific knowledge. Then developing countries are unwilling to take meaningful action. So we have sadly forfeited our own agency in favor of in the past techno solutionism. I think that's what we have to. Uh, Basically, this is a comment, and this is we have forfeited our own agency in thinking that there will be a technical solution for all these problems. Even though there are no events officially, there was still one event on International Mountain Day. So the 16th Focal Point Forum, they organized a meeting on Mountain Day where they identified several gaps. They identified our understand there is a gap in understanding cryosphere variables like permafrost extent. If you remember, the text. Uh, there was a global tipping point report, and that mentioned that uh, permafrost regions are going to be one of the tipping points. So limited studies are there, and then gaps in assessment of cost benefits, and then cultural and livelihood erosion in the Arctic is forcing communities to relocate from there. So I think this climate refugee problem has touched even Arctic region. So the people who are communities living there, now they are forced to relocate because of cultural and livelihood erosion. So there was this report which was released yesterday by high-level champions. There are some individuals who have been recognized as high-level champions at every COP28. So that lady, which we mentioned, she is one of the high-level champions. So they released a report, and that's called 2030 Climate Solutions and Implementation Roadmap. So this roadmap includes a set of solutions and some insights by non-party stakeholders. That means outside the countries, CSOs have given their insight on what kind of measures need to be taken with regard to this climate solutions. There was this report released on the global fashion agenda. So fashion industry is also responding with net zero commitments, and they have released a report called GFA Monitor. So this monitor, the industry expects to guide fashion leaders towards net positive fashion industry. They mentioned Azerbaijan is one of the biggest gas and oil exporters of the world. And they are going to host next COP29. Brazil is also has agreed to host COP30. So that is 2 years down the line. So the dates have already been declared. Then I think government ministers and CEOs, they also declared some aspects of it. So there are 39 countries who have endorsed the hydrogen declaration of intent to pursue hydrogen certification schemes. So again, today on 12 December, 26 events are scheduled. But these are not official thematic events. Some cooking, film screening, small get-together, something like that, as I have seen the list on the COP28 website. So this is what we are seeing today's review. I'll stop here and briefly talk in Telugu. నిన్న 11 డిసెంబర్ నాడు COP28లో ఏదైతే చర్చల అంటే ఈ గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ మీద మొదటి నుంచి కూడా డిసెంబర్ 1 నుంచి ప్రతిపాదనలో ఒక నెగోషియేటింగ్ టెక్స్ట్ రూపంలో ఇస్తున్నారు. నిన్న 4వ టెక్స్ట్ విడుదల చేశారు. అయితే మొన్న 10th డిసెంబర్ నాడు ఏమో మొత్తం శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను క్రమంగా తగ్గిస్తాము, వినియోగం ఆపేస్తామని ప్రతిపాదనలు ఉంటే నిన్న 4:30కి విడుదల చేసిన ప్రతిలో దీని గురించి పూర్తిగా తీసేసినారు. అంటే అంతకుముందు వాడిన భాష కూడా తీసేసి చాలా సాధారణంగా శుష్కమైన భాష తోటి నిన్న ఇంకో ప్రతిపాదన వచ్చింది. ఇది ఇప్పటి నుంచి నిన్నటికి భారీ తేడా కనపడుతుంది. అంటే ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించాలి, ఉపయోగం తగ్గించాలి, మనకు ఏదైతే భూగోళం మీద ఈ కర్బన ఉద్గారాలతో వస్తున్న సమస్యలు తగ్గించాలంటే ఉద్గారాలను తగ్గించాలంటే ఆ ఉద్గారాలకు కారణమైన ఇంధనాలను వాడకం తగ్గించాలని. సో ఇంధనాల వాడకాన్ని క్రమంగా తగ్గించాలని ప్రతిపాదన ఎప్పటి నుంచో ఉన్నా ఈసారి ఆ గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ రిపోర్ట్ నేపథ్యంలో కొంత బలమైన పదాలతో కూడిన ప్రతిపాదన ఉండింది. కానీ నిన్నటికి అది మొత్తం ఎత్తివేసి దాన్ని బలహీనపరిచిన ప్రతిపాదన వచ్చింది. దీంతో అసలు ఈ COP28 ఏం సాధిస్తుందని ఎవరైతే మొదట్లోనే చెప్పారో వాళ్ళ వాదన నిజమైనట్టు మనకు కనపడుతుంది. ఇదే కాక మిగతా అనేక అంశాల మీద కూడా అసలు ఏకాభిప్రాయ సాధన రాలేదు. అనేక విషయాల్లో వాటిని పోస్ట్పోన్ చేశారు. ఇప్పుడు కాదు, వచ్చే COP29లో నిర్ణయిస్తామని. ఒకవైపు ఏమో నివేదికల మీద నివేదికలు చెప్తున్నాయి. మనము ఈ సంవత్సరము చాలా కఠినమైన పరిస్థితిలో ఉన్నాము, నిర్ణయాలు కూడా చాలా కఠినంగా, తక్షణంగా, అత్యవసరంగా తీసుకోవాల్సిన నేపథ్యంలో ఈ బలహీనంగా ఉండే ప్రతిపాదనలు, తర్వాత అసలే దీని మీద ఒక ఏకాభిప్రాయ సాధనకు కూడా ఆస్కారం లేకుండా పోస్ట్పోన్ చేయడం అనేది ఇది చాలా దయనీయమైన పరిస్థితిగా కనపడుతుంది. ఆ టెక్స్ట్లు కూడా ఇప్పుడు కేవలం గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేకే కాకుండా నిధుల మీద, ఫైనాన్స్ మీద కూడా చాలా చర్చలు జరిగినాయి, కానీ ఒక రూపం కానీ ఒక దిశ కానీ కనపడట్లేదు. ఇది కొత్తగా COP28 ఈ రోజు మొదలైంది కాదు, ఇది 28వ సమావేశం అయినా కూడా ఏకాభిప్రాయము రాని పరిస్థితి ఉన్నది. అది చాలా శోచనీయమైన. అందరూ దాన్ని ఖండించారు కూడా. యూరోపియన్ యూనియన్ కూడా ఖండించింది. కాకపోతే దీన్ని బలహీనపరిచిన శక్తుల్లో బహుశా అమెరికా ఉన్నట్టుంది, తర్వాత కొన్ని పెట్రోలియం ఆధారిత దేశాలు, బహుశా భారతదేశం కూడా ఉండొచ్చు. ఎందుకంటే నిన్న జరిగిన సమావేశాల్లో కానీ లోపట జరిగిన చర్చల గురించి కానీ మనకు భారతదేశం యొక్క పాత్ర గురించి మనకు సమాచారం దొరకలేదు. కానీ ఎట్లాంటి పాత్ర నిర్వహించింది అనేది ఇదివరకు ఉన్న పొజిషన్ బట్టి అర్థమవుతుంది. కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వము బొగ్గుని బొగ్గు వాడకం తగ్గిద్దామనే బదులు బొగ్గు మీద కొత్తగా పెట్టుబడులు పెడదామని మనం మనకి ఇంకా సమయం ఉంది. ఎందుకంటే మనం కాలుష్యం మనం ఇదివరకు చేయలేదు. ఇప్పుడు అభివృద్ధిలో జరిగే కాలుష్యం ఉంటుంది. కాబట్టి ఈ కాలుష్యంకి మనకు హక్కు ఉంది, మనం చేసే హక్కు ఉంది అనే విధంగా మాట్లాడుతూ ఈ బొగ్గు శిలాజ ఇంధనాల వాడకం తగ్గించడం మీద భారత ప్రభుత్వం కూడా వెనుకడుగేస్తుంది. మరి నిన్న ఆ చర్చలు ఏవైతే జరిగినాయో ఆ లోపల అవి ఎవరు ఏం మాట్లాడారనేది మనకు పూర్తిగా తెలియదు. కాకపోతే ఆ బయటకు వచ్చిన ప్రతిపాదన అంటే ఆ డ్రాఫ్ట్ ముసాయిదా ఏదైతే ఉందో అది మాత్రం అంతకుముందు ముసాయిదా కంటే భారీగా తగ్గించేసిన పరిస్థితి చూస్తుంది. ఇది ఆ, ఈ రోజు ఇప్పుడు 11 గంటలకు ఇంకో గంటలో COP28 ముగుస్తుంది లెక్క ప్రకారం. అంటే ఇది వరకు ఉన్న కార్యక్రమ ఆ, ఆ, వివరాల ప్రకారం. కానీ ఇది ముగుస్తుందా, ఇవాళ రోజంతా మరి చర్చలు కొనసాగుతాయా, రేపు కూడా జరుగుతుందా అనేది ఈ రోజు తెలుస్తుంది. కానీ అనేక దేశాలు మేము ఇది అంగీకరించము, మేము ఒక నిర్ణయం తీసుకొని వెళ్తాము, లేకుంటే మాకు ఇంట్లో అంటే వాళ్ళు మమ్మల్ని అడుగుతారు మేమేం చేసినామని మేము చెప్పే పరిస్థితిలో లేం. కాబట్టి మేము ఈ బలహీనపరిచిన ప్రతిపాదన ఒప్పుకునేది లేదు. మాకు కఠినమైన తక్షణమైన అత్యవసరమైన నిర్ణయం అవసరం ఉంది, మేము ఇక్కడే ఉంటామనే విధంగా నిన్న అనేక దేశాలు మాట్లాడాయి. యూరోపియన్ యూనియన్ ఇట్లాంటి బలమైన ప్రతిపాదన ఉంటే మేము వాకౌట్ చేస్తాము, మేము ఈ చర్చల్లో ఉండము, నిరసన తెలియజేస్తామని వాళ్ళు చెప్పడం జరిగింది. అంటే రకరకాల దేశాలు తమ ప్రతిస్పందన ఇచ్చాయి, కానీ ఎక్కువ శాతం మాత్రం ఈ ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాల వాడకం తగ్గించే తీర్మానం వైపే వాళ్ళు మొగ్గు చూపుతున్నారు. కేవలం ఒక 5, 2, 3, 10 దేశాలు వీటిని కొనసాగించే విధంగా, ఎందుకంటే వాళ్ళకి స్పష్టంగా వాళ్ళకి లాభం ఉంది కాబట్టి వాళ్ళు ఆ దిశగా ఆలోచిస్తున్నట్టు కనపడుతుంది. మరి ఈ రోజు ఏం జరుగుతుంది అనేది రేపు రివ్యూ చేద్దాము. బహుశా ఈ పరిస్థితి మళ్ళీ మారొచ్చు, ఎందుకంటే తీవ్రమైన ఒత్తిడి అక్కడ స్వచ్ఛంద సంస్థలు కానీ ఇతర దేశాలు, తర్వాత ఈ అంతర్జాతీయ సంస్థలు కూడా వీటి మీద ఒత్తిడి పెడుతుంది. బహుశా అది ఆ వ్యతిరేకత పరిగణలోకి తీసుకుంటే ఈ రోజు మళ్ళీ ఈ ప్రతిపాదనలు మారి కొంత సానుకూల ఏకాభిప్రాయము వస్తుందని భావిద్దాము. ఈరోజు ఈ సమీక్షకు ముగింపు మళ్ళీ రేపు కలుద్దాం. రేపు చివరి రోజు అని అనుకుంటున్నాను. ఒకవేళ రేపు కూడా చర్చలు కొనసాగితే ఎల్లుండి సమీక్ష ఉంటుంది, లేదంటే రేపటితోటి చివరి సమీక్ష ఉంటుంది. మీకు అందరూ ధన్యవాదాలు.